What's up, guys? It's Diego from SGN, back with another episode of Premier League Aftermath. And because of the fact that I wasn't able to do this video earlier on in the week, I'm going to go ahead and mix the weekend's fixtures with the midweek fixtures that literally just took place last night and Tuesday. Let's go ahead and start off with the Manchester Derby, a game that was absolutely season-defining and was essential to United's hopes of getting back into this title race, because Manchester City were going to be, if they won that game, on a 14-game winning streak, and they are now on a 15-game winning streak. They are absolutely phenomenal this season, and they should be competing for the Champions League. But I'm getting a little bit too far ahead of myself right now. The game itself was not the way I would have expected it going. And in fact, I did a video about it, but I didn't have time to put it up. So by the time it would have been up, the game would have already been played, so I just went ahead and not put it up. And basically, I predicted a 2-1 United win, not City. 2 United wins. So I got the result right, but I didn't get, I got the score right. I didn't get the actual winners right. So that's always a shame, especially because of the fact that, in case you haven't noticed, I'm a United fan. So that's definitely very disappointing. But the big thing that I take away from this game isn't necessarily disappointment or sadness. It's regret. Because I would have expected Mourinho to play a similar style. And I did think he was going to play a defensive style, not really allowing City any holes in defense. But I expected him to play a lot more dangerously on offense, because he had the right formation. In my opinion, he had the right idea. Martial and Rashford starting were going to offer a lot of danger going forward, because City's defense is pretty garbage. Let's be real here. Their defense is garbage. Kyle Walker is very, very good, but he's the only person in their defense that I actually consider to be any good whatsoever. Otamendi, I don't rate him at all, basically, as a defender. And yes, he scored, so he does kind of make me look stupid, but I don't really consider him to be a great defender. He's got 5 goals this season, but that's pretty much all he's really done. He has improved from last season, but realistically, he couldn't be any worse. So I don't really think he's anything all that special. Mangala, he's nothing really particularly good either. He's a pretty solid center back, but is he really elite? I don't think so. Kyle Walker, like I said, is very, very good. And who was playing at left back? I can't really remember who they had at left back. But regardless, Fabian Delph. Fabian Delph was playing left back, and let's be real, Fabian Delph is not good at all. He's borderline Aston Villa levels. That's where he used to play. But in Premier League terms, I would say he's Newcastle levels, maybe a little bit better. He's not that great at all. So their defense was absolutely attackable. And there's no excuse for Mourinho to not attack them early on. Like, the thing about that is, yes, they were doing a pretty decent job at keeping City at bay, but every time there was a counterattack, there was plenty of opportunities to really attack the shit out of them, and it seemed like the plan was to not expose themselves at all. They just simply wanted to not take any risks whatsoever. And that was a huge mistake, because Martial, Rashford, Lukaku, who has a lot of pace as well, they could really, really create a lot of problems on the counterattack, which is where I thought we were going to be our most dangerous. Because if you look at player to player, especially with us not having Paul Pogba, they were definitely superior. Technically, they are much superior. And overall, if you let them play their game, they are going to punish you eventually. And they did punish us. Yes, I think for sure the second goal, it was definitely a lot of luck, because just a defensive mistake there by Lukaku having an awful job clearing the ball out of the box. But overall, I don't think they were that much superior than us necessarily in terms of truly dangerous situation that they created in the first half. Once they scored that first goal, we saw Jose sort of have the team push forward a bit more and really go at them. And within 3 or 4 minutes we scored? So that shows you, if Jose would have set the team up to be a bit more offensive early on, we could have scored definitely more than 1 goal. And once we got the 1-1, Jose sort of had to sit back again. He just sort of reset the way the game was going earlier on in the first half. So I think that was the biggest mistake he made, was simply not going at it hard enough, because I think the game was, if not there for us to win, definitely for us not to lose. I mean, I don't think we were inferior to them in the long run. I think we easily could have gotten the win, or even just the draw. But it is what it is, The season is pretty much over at this point. And there was that whole scuffle after the match, which I think is pretty hilarious. I've been saying this for a very long time. I would love to fight Pep Guardiola just because I think he's a bum. Not as a manager. He just really annoys the shit out of me. I look at him and he's like, that's a guy I would love to fight. And I'm not even a guy who fights people, but I would love to fight him for free in the octagon in the UFC. And I'm pretty confident I would beat his ass just because he wears a scarf. If you wear a scarf, I generally don't really respect you as a fan. So that's pretty much it. I'm just playing with you guys. Obviously, I don't want to beat up Pep Guardiola. I'll just let Mourinho do that eventually because he's eventually going to just beat the shit out of the guy. And Mourinho will probably get his ass beat as well because he doesn't really seem like the most fierce guy. He seems like a guy who talks a lot, but will he fight? I don't know. I'd actually probably be willing to pay that. The Manchester Derby in the octagon. Anyway, I'm just getting way sidetracked right now. So yeah, I mean, I'm sad about the result. I'm sad about the fact that we aren't really in the race anymore because they are now 11 points ahead of us. But I'm not sad about the fact that they beat us. I'm more upset, like I said, about the fact that we simply didn't go out there and play the game we needed to play because we could not accept the draw. We needed a fucking win. So there was absolutely no reason for us to be defensive. I understand trying to contain them, and I understand trying to play the style of play that Josie likes to do, and he's been really successful with, which is stifling the opposition. But you've got to go after them. You cannot just simply be content with drawing and being content with not letting them score. You have got to get goals. You have got to get the result. So I'm very disappointed in that. I'm not going to sit there and criticize Mourinho like a lot of people are doing because I still think that the guy, I think is going to carry us to a lot of success. I think we still have what it takes to develop because we have a very young team, a very, very good young team, I might add. And I think that in the coming years, possibly even next season, we will be a very big force, not just in the Premier League, but also in Europe. So I do still have a lot of faith in Mourinho as a manager and being our manager in the future. But I just hope that from here on out, the style of play changes. He realizes that from now on, it has to be gung-ho. If you want to use that type of strategy in the Champions League against a bigger team like Real Madrid or Bayern Munich, something like that, against a team who is definitely a lot more superior to us in terms of technicality, then sure, do that. But from now on in the Premier League, because of the fact that if we even lose a game, we're fucked. Like, regardless, we are probably fucked right now. But if we lose another game anywhere near and City win that game in the same week, we're going to be 14 points behind, and that is guaranteed KO. That is guaranteed that we were fucking out of this race. So I want to see us go gung-ho, get as many goals as possible, play some entertaining football, and try to win as many games as possible. And that leads me into the game against Bournemouth from last night. And I unfortunately wasn't able to watch the game because they weren't showing it on Sky, at least in Italy. And I couldn't find a stream because my internet was trash, and I don't illegally stream, but I couldn't find anywhere to watch it, let's put it that way. So unfortunately I didn't see the game, but I was following obviously live on Eurosport, and there's a few things I want to talk about. And like I just said, I wanted us to go gung-ho and really beat down the teams that we should be destroying. And Bournemouth, in my opinion, is a team that we should be destroying. However, they've had some good results. I think they had a decent performance against City, only losing 1-0. I think they had a good performance against Chelsea as well. So they have been a pretty resilient team, and I do have a lot of respect for their manager, Eddie Howe. That said, we need to be beating these teams. And yes, we did win the game 1-0, but if you look at the stat sheet, it was not very good. They had 14 shots, we had 8. David De Gea had to make 8 saves from their 14 shots. We had 3 blocks from our defenders. We blocked 3 of their shots. So who knows what would have happened, all right? And like I said, I haven't been able to see the game, and that's where I really judge the performance, because if you look at highlights and stuff like that, you only see the major things, but you don't really see how the team was doing as a whole. You don't see how people were playing off the ball. You don't see what really counts in a 90-minute game of football. So I'm not going to really criticize that. But I would have definitely wanted to see this team go out there hungry, really motivated to get revenge, and really go out there and give everything they have to get a huge win and show City, who were just being assholes apparently in the locker room after the Manchester Derby, that this season is not over. But they didn't do that. They put on a performance where, yes, we got the win, and yes, Lukaku did get a much-needed game winner, because that's something that's definitely going to improve his confidence, because it doesn't really seem like he's very confident, at least recently. That's going to be very huge, but we needed a huge win. We needed a really, really big impact win, and I just don't think that happened, especially because of the fact that City, what did they do? They won, I think it was 4-0. They won their last game 4-0, I think it was last night, against whoever it was. I can't remember who it was. But anyway, they won their game 4-0, 5 or 4-1, something like that. So we needed to have a similar result. The type of game where we go out there and we beat a team down and they're like, listen, if you guys slip up, we're right back in this thing. If you guys lose 2 games, we're going to be here. We're going to at least make this a war. We're going to make this as much of a problem for you as it could possibly be. And we didn't really do that. Yes, we got the win. But I want to see big performance. I want to see positive performances. games that we really look like contenders in this league, even if we're that far back. We needed a rebound performance, and yes, we got the win. Like I said, 3 points are always good, but I wanted something a lot more special. City are now on a 15-game winning streak. They are looking like world beaters. That's a Premier League record, and they simply do not look like they're going to be stopped regardless. And we don't really look like we're going to be able to take advantage if they do blow some chances. If they blow a few games here and there, we don't look that confident that we will be able to reopen this title race if they do slip up. Moving on to Chelsea, who on the weekend had an atrocious loss to West Ham, who, yes, they do have David Moyes, and let that sink in. Chelsea lost to David Moyes, all right? Davey fucking Moyes hasn't really won a significant game in who knows how long, probably since his days at Everton. And that's just how bad he's been. So that's pretty atrocious. However, in Chelsea's defense, West Ham actually did go in to the midweek fixture and actually got a pretty solid result against Arsenal, who got a 0-0. Now, I don't know if that's a matter of West Ham actually improving under Davy Moyes, or if simply Arsenal and Chelsea are just atrocious. However, Chelsea did do a pretty good job of going into the match against Huddersfield, and they got a 3-1 win against Huddersfield. So that's a very solid result. And there's one thing I want to talk about here regarding Chelsea before I move on to the next team, which is the fact that Eden Hazard, as good as the guy is, he's inconsistent as hell. He had a phenomenal performance yesterday against Huddersfield, the day before yesterday, whenever it was, against Huddersfield. And as good as that was, in the match before that against West Ham, he was pretty much non-existent. So the one thing that's really separating this guy from the huge players in the world, from the elite players in the world, is that consistency. When you look at a guy like Eden Hazard and the expectations that a team like Chelsea have on him, he has to be performing week in, week out at the very highest level. He has to be the guy that they can look at every single week to get them the goal they need in desperate situations, to get that amazing pass in desperate situations, to get an assist. He hasn't really been that. When he's on his day, he is second to none. Almost second to none. He's not Messi or Ronaldo, but you get my point. He's one of the best players you could possibly have in your team when he's on his very best form. When he's not playing great, though, he is pretty much non-existent. He is kind of like Ozil. He kind of just disappears. And he needs to improve that. If he can, then he will almost guaranteed be one of the top players in the world, one of the elite Ballon d'Or title contenders every single season once he does be able to reach that potential. And with the fact that Ronaldo is sort of, let's just be real, he's at a certain age where he's not going to be at the peak form that he has been over the past few years, so he is going to start going backwards a little bit. Messi is also getting up there in age, so there are going to be a few players that are getting past their prime, and this is his time to get in there alongside maybe Gareth Bale, alongside Neymar, alongside whoever else are going to get themselves into that list and really become a Ballon d'Or contender. He has to really improve in terms of consistency and how much he makes an impact on certain games. But once he can do that, he's going to be a huge player for Chelsea. Moving on to Arsenal, last weekend, this very recent weekend, they only drew 0-0 to Southampton. And Southampton aren't necessarily a very bad team, but they aren't a team that you need to be drawing if you are Arsenal. And of course, last weekend before, when they played against United, they lost 3-1 at the Emirates, which was a very, very bad result, and it absolutely killed their momentum because they were on, a 5-game winning streak, so they were looking really good, and it seemed like they were going to be able to get themselves seemingly back into contention for a top 4 position, which is pretty much the best they can aim for at this point in the season, considering how poorly they're doing. They desperately need to do that in order to reach the expectations, because another year in the Europa League for Arsenal is definitely not going to be good, because all they really care about is making money. And because of the fact that now Alexis Sanchez and Mesut Ozil are guaranteed to leave, essentially, if they stay in the Champions League, there's a very, very remote chance of them staying. But I don't see that happening, especially if Arsenal get out of the Europa League. Then Mesut Ozil and Alexis Sanchez are 100% going to leave, and they are very likely to go to one of the Manchester clubs, respectively. So we're going to see exactly what happens there, but Arsenal are without a doubt going to lose their 2 best players to title rivals. So that would be very, very bad for them. If that does happen, it's going to be even harder for them to attract huge name players over the summer, and it's going to be even harder for them to consistently get themselves back into the top 4. If that happens, that's going to be a very, very, very bad situation for Arsenal. And they desperately needed to get points midweek, and they failed to do that by getting a 0-0 draw against West Ham United, which is just absolutely atrocious. I mean, I am shocked as to how bad Arsenal are doing right now. And The game against Southampton was a 1-1 draw. The one against West Ham was a 0-0 draw. Regardless, very poor performances all around. And Arsenal, they just don't seem to have what it takes to get themselves into that top four. And this is going to be an atrocious season for them. And it might be Arsene Wenger's last season. I know they just prolonged his contract. But Arsenal, if they really want to be contenders for the top four, and if they really want to do something different from what they've done in the past 20 years, which has been pretty much nothing whatsoever. They've won, 3 titles? But they haven't really done anything amazing or anything worth mentioning in the past, 10, 15 years. Like, yes, they won the FA Cup. Well, not 15, but definitely like 12, 13. They won a few FA Cups, but nobody really cares about that. That's not what really matters. Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues is what people want to see. Their fans have come to expect Premier League titles. That's what happens when you win a Premier League title. They expect that. You win 2, they expect even more. They've won 3 in the Wenger era. And this simply is not acceptable for their fans. And they are a very vocal fan base, a very fickle fan base, I would definitely say. So Wenger needs to get the hell out. I personally hope he stays because they're trash, and I love that. But they need to get rid of Wenger if the Arsenal want to come back to being a real contender in the Premier League and in Europe. Moving on to Arsenal's main rivals, Tottenham. They went in there, and after having kind of a tough run of games as of late, they went into the weekend match against Stoke City, and they went ahead and got a nice 5-1 win in a very, very big performance for them. Because playing at Wembley has always been a bit of a problem for them. We saw them last season at Wembley in the Champions League. They were atrocious, and early on this season, they were having a hard time adapting themselves to play there. I mean, that's pretty much the only thing I think of why they were possibly so bad. But right now, they are definitely improving their form, and they're looking very, very solid. They got a 5-1 win over Stoke, playing tremendous football. And when Dele Alli, Harry Kane, who else do they fucking have? Christian Eriksen, when Son is on form, when they have all those guys clicking, they are one of the best teams in the world to watch. And I look forward to seeing what they do against Juventus in the Champions League. That's going to be, in my opinion, the most entertaining games to watch, except for maybe Real Madrid, PSG. But I have a feeling that PSG are going to be kind of garbage, so I'm not as excited about that as much as I am as seeing Tottenham versus Juventus. Two teams that play beautiful football, very fun to watch, and a team like Tottenham who are on the rise, and a team like Juventus who are kind of aging. It's going to be very fun to see that mix, but that contrast of experience versus pure youth ferocity. It's going to be very, very fun to watch, and I hope Tottenham do go on. After that, though, they played Brighton, and once again, Brighton are a team that isn't necessarily very good offensively, but in defense, they tend to be able to stifle people off long enough to make it at least a tough game. When they do concede, they tend to concede 2 or 3, but still, as long as it stays 0-0, they tend to be a tough team to break down. However, Tottenham got this nice little 2-0 win, keeping themselves somewhat in the race for the title, but it'll take a miraculous comeback against, in terms of City just being absolutely trash, for Tottenham to get back in it. But what I mean by that is their race for the third place title, I guess you could say, because realistically, United should be finishing second. Chelsea probably are going to be able to finish third, but you never know. Tottenham get themselves into that third place spot, and the most important thing for Tottenham, I think, this season, considering how things have gone, how things have progressed so far, is finishing top 4. If they can go 2 seasons in a row in the top 4 and keeping themselves in the Champions League spots, then I definitely think that would go a long way in terms of them being able to keep their major players and possibly finally bringing in the players they need to improve that team over the next summer. Moving on to Liverpool, and this is the last team I'm going to talk about in this video. They had a pretty tough couple of matches, and obviously, they are a team that's very hit and miss. They're very inconsistent. When they play very well offensively, they're one of the most dangerous teams you could possibly come up against because they have pace, they have pure quality in terms of Salah, Mane, etc., Coutinho. They have so many good players offensively, but their defense is not just trash. That's some motherfucking Umado trash, which is the type of trash that stinks up a fucking storm in your house and you want to get that shit out of there as soon as possible. That's how bad their defense is. Lovren is atrocious. I've been saying this for years. Everybody's been saying this for years. And once again, he proves that he has no business being in a major Premier League team by giving none other than Everton, their number 1 most hated team except for Manchester United, a penalty in the dying minutes of the game when they were up 1-0. And who scores it? Who scores the penalty? Wayne fucking Rooney, my motherfucking idol, back when fucking 2006. This motherfucker hits that 1-1, and that's his 5th goal in 4 games, or 4th goal in 5 games, whatever the hell the stat is. And regardless, Lovren gave Everton the fucking draw in the game that he absolutely should not have done something like that in, because his fans, and rightfully so, are going to be on his ass, and he's probably going to be one of the most hated men in Liverpool for quite a while, because that dude is fucking atrocious, and they've been saying that for a long time, and it's very ridiculous that he is still there. And obviously, after that disappointing draw at Anfield, nonetheless, they desperately needed to get a result in midweek. And what do? They go against West Brom and get a 0-0 at Anfield once again. That's atrocious, man. That's fucking atrocious. Like, can you imagine, all right, drawing against your main city rivals, going against West Brom, who are an atrocious team, who play zero football. All you have to literally do is just go at them, attack them, break them down eventually, and just score on them, because they have no quality whatsoever. Yes, they're physical, but in terms of quality, they have no quality. And not being able to win that game. That is absolutely atrocious, absolutely disgusting, and I love it, because fuck Liverpool, fuck their fans. Hi, Serena. I hate those dumb fucks, and I'm absolutely happy that Liverpool are once again, not going to be able to make it to the Champions League, and I look forward to seeing if they do make it to the next round of the Champions League. There's Serena once again, and I absolutely hope they do not. So fuck them. It's been a very up and down week in the Premier League for me, because obviously United lost, but yes, Liverpool did lose. I'm hoping that things will get better. City will eventually drop some points and possibly give us a chance to get back in this league. I'm not very convinced that we will, but all you can do is hope and believe, and that the Champions League will go better. We have Sevilla. Things are going to get better. It's going to be a very, very interesting time in the Premier League coming over to the Christmas period. And this is a time where championships really start to get interesting, because you have so many games in such a short amount of time, and players like to get drunk over the Christmas period. Boxing Day, we'll see who got drunk, who got fucked up, and we're going to see if there's any shocking results there. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I've been Diego from SGN. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button, hit the comment section, let me know what you think of what I said about all these games. Also, please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.